Welcome back everyone to GGN. This is part 4 for today. I'm a little pissed off right now because I guess I should have expected it. I was supposed to do 2 videos, but you know, whatever. I did more commentary, I busted it into 3. But then all of a sudden, after the end of the last video, the 3rd video, you notice it was only 7 minutes. Everything froze, so I was completely fucked with there. So I don't know what point it was that I was making that struck a nerve, but it basically cut off as I was saying that the point of these videos was to what? Was to tell you that there is either a war or there is some kind of thing going on between the trading blocks. And so that's what we're seeing in Africa. That's what we're seeing when they're done with Arabia. They can create cheap labor there. They can separate the people from the resources. And that's what's taking place. You'll see that in South America too. Possibly wars, you know, with Asia, China, Pakistan, and India. Also, we're talking about the main thing, which was population reduction as well. So this video has been processing for about 15 minutes now, part 2, at least 15 minutes. And hopefully this makes sense, because like I said, I got kind of cut off, so I'm not really sure. It breaks my concentration. Asylum seekers at top of Australian Prime Minister's trip to Indonesia. The new Australian leader won national elections earlier this month on Stop the Boat's pledge to end the constant stream of asylum seekers sailing from Indonesia to Australia. So under the new policy, the Australian Navy has been ordered to prevent the boats from reaching shore and turn them back whenever possible. They say the government's been under domestic pressure to stop the influx of asylum seekers from countries such as Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. So these are all countries that Australia and the government support, along with the West, in bombing and killing civilians and exporting these people into foreign cultures. There's another place where these people are coming from in Myanmar, right? We're talking about human rights. So what about human rights violations? And try to make it better, right? Why not make it better in Indonesia? You know, if you're going around bombing people in order to help carry out human rights and impose democracy and stuff like that, why not make it better? But they turn a blind eye to what's going on in Myanmar, which is a genocide by Buddhist monks. And, you know, who do they hail? Suu Kyi, right? The champion for democracy. So the female there, they put in place. But it goes on here and it says Buddhist mobs killed a 94-year-old Muslim woman, scorching more than 70 homes. And so this is what's happened yesterday. Boat capsizes off Myanmar, dozens missing and feared dead. This is from May 2013, but it's an ongoing thing. Clashes killed 10 people in Russia's Dagestan. For some reason, Dagestan has basically heated up. The North Caucasus. 10 people have died following a 2-day gun battle between police and militants after basically the Russian authorities carried out a raid in the mountainous district. So it's interesting because I believe the same thing. This is all part of the same fight that the SAA is involved in, and if Syria was to go down, it would expose the whole of Southern Russian Federation to attack and invasion for those Wahhabi terrorists. This could all be part of the Western plan. That's what I'm talking about, right? War between the trading blocks. I don't really think there's much sovereign nations. I think ultimately we're going to have consolidation and one global corporation running everything. Russian troops war game invasion of Europe for political gain. So what the hell? Russian troops war game invasion of Europe? They say it's the latest of these Zapad West exercises. They're one of the biggest yet, a 6-day run. Exercises run in Belarus near the Polish, Lithuanian, Latvian borders. The 2,500 paratroopers and other special forces on Belarus's soil, 2,400 Belarusians, along with a small contingent around 300 soldiers from Russia's collective security treaty organization. It says here from Armenia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. I thought I'd throw this in there last minute. From the 30th, former Soviet states are standing up to Russia. They've had some success recently using his support for Bashar Assad's regime in Syria to strengthen the Moscow's position in the Middle East, but his progress on this front is much less important than Moscow's growing troubles in its near abroad, as it refers to the strategically vital area to its immediate west. So they're talking about trade, right? So business, trading blocks. So one of them is Lithuania, which several other countries could sign the Association of Free Trade Agreements with the EU, including the Ukraine, which I believe has done that. Also, I saw an article about Tajikistan, not a big surprise, but another Central Asian country that authorized or basically said that Russia could keep more troops inside their country. Brussels plans to control European army. They call for a new EU military headquarters. So this article is actually about a month old, but they called for a new headquarters that would direct major civilian and military crisis operations. They have to start building standby forces under Union command. So what's going on here, right? South America. Peruvians staged 24-hour general strike against government policies. But it's 24 hours, right? Most protesters, they go out there, protest a little bit, and go home, right? And they forget about it. Go back to their jobs or back to school or whatever. But this is about mines, too. Peru gold mining poisons natives, says study. New research shows informal gold mining in Peru's Amazon region has poisoned mainly the indigenous people, who get most of their protein from fish. About 76% of the people living in the region, both rural and urban, were found to have mercury levels more than 5 times the maximum acceptable levels, and 2.3 times greater than those in the non-indigenous communities. Moreover, the indigenous children had 3 times more mercury in their bodies than children from non-native communities. So they're usually out there protesting, saying that drinking water in their water supply is worth more than gold to them, and they're willing to protest for it. And so that will be, I think, used against them. They're talking about separating people from their resources to destabilize South America. Of course, Chavez was kind of ahead of the Bolivarian Revolution and stuff, and now that he's gone, they're putting stress on Venezuela and Maduro to make him look really, really bad. And they can do that too, because Venezuela, like other countries, does business with other countries, and so they're able to kind of impact their economy if they want. Because a lot of these countries, whether it's North Korea or Venezuela or Iran, they have sanctions against them. So they're already 10 steps behind, fighting an uphill battle because of these sanctions that are imposed on them. Basically because what? Because they want to make sure that they're not completely exploited by these global elite. So they've let Africa and South America fester in poverty and famine, disease, but not so much in the hot war. Africa, yeah, they have had some hot war type conflicts with terrorists and stuff like that. Bolivian President Evo Morales says Obama is not the leader of the world, and that he is guilty of crimes against humanity. So it's talking about protests, and the Romanians know as well, and I'll go back to South America. Romanians hold protest 15th day against gold mine plan. 15 days they were protesting against this gold mine. The other one, 24 hours in Peru, right? These people are hardcore. So the project draws criticism since it involves using thousands of tons of cyanide to mine the metals, and it would also lead to the destruction of 4 mountains and relocations of hundreds of families. Back to Venezuela. Venezuela ceases toilet paper factory to avoid shortage. So you never know if this is just Western propaganda. That they love to jump on it, in a bid to avoid any scarcity of toilet paper. They've seized a factory. The National Guard took control of the plant, and officers will monitor production and distribution. They've actually deployed army, I believe, onto the streets of Venezuela to curb the recent uptick in violence and murders. So it says here, he issued in a tweet, the president, that he would not permit hoarding of essential commodities or any faults in the production and distribution process. He blamed this whole issue on unscrupulous traders. Minister of Trade said that the factory occupation complied with Venezuelan law. Then you had this, political sparks fly after Venezuela blackout, and this was actually from September 5th, so about a month ago. Worst power outages in Venezuela's history. Gave a jolt to Maduro's government and revived opposition accusations that its socialist policies and incompetence are wrecking the country. So there you go. See, it's all laid out. Venezuelan president kicks out U.S. diplomats. So this came after all that I saw in the news. I've been wanting to cover this for about a week now. Venezuelan president kicks out U.S. diplomats and declares no cordial ties until sovereignty has been respected. So he says the officials were conducting, U.S. officials were conducting espionage and attempting to destabilize his country. Washington entirely rejected the charges, which Maduro said involved meetings with opposition leaders and encouraging sabotage of the Venezuelan electricity grid and economy. So who knows if this is what he's saying is actually true or not. But U.S. expels 3 Venezuelan diplomats over sabotage allegations. The 3 Venezuelan diplomats were ordered out of the United States on Tuesday in response to their government's decision to boot 3 U.S. officials from Venezuela. So the U.S. said, we completely reject the Venezuela's government allegations of U.S. government involvement in any type of conspiracy to destabilize the Venezuelan government. So, I think that they killed Chavez with some kind of microwave weapons. I think Castro said that he was injected with something, but it was cancer that they could not get rid of. So they took him out. So they're obviously doing something to those people. Brazilian police forces clash with striking teachers. So Brazil now, police have clashed with striking teachers who have gathered out in front of Rio de Janeiro's city hall to call for better pay. They're met by grenades and rubber bullets. So what happens when teachers or robots, right? Computers, online learning replaces teachers? Well, they won't have a job. Dominican Republic doctors strike over pay cuts. Dominican Republic doctors and healthcare workers have walked off their jobs to protest against deep incisions to the country's health service sector. 3-day strike. So, kind of coincidental, all this is happening, right? Mexican teachers protest education reforms that block the main road to Mexico City's international airport, and a new protest against education reforms in the country. So I'm going to leave off here, guys. I was able to get through this video successfully, and I'm going to bust out a 4th video with some HARP news, chemtrail news, and updates. So, yeah, so please join me in part 4. This is GGN, and I'm Jarko. Thank you.